So let's talk about anxiety triggers, and particularly avoiding anxiety triggers. Now, by trigger, I mean anything that causes that very physical response to anxiety that we're all too familiar with. So your heart starts racing, you're sweating, you experience pain, you're uncomfortable, you're ruminating, you're checking things, you're worrying, you're trying to control the world, you're trying to avoid that negative experience. It's very much like your response to a physical injury. The reason for that is because mental health problems are really physical health problems, so the experience is the same. So say for example, you had injured your shoulder while you were throwing. So for a period of time, you're not going to throw, because every time you throw, that triggers that very physical response. You feel pain, it might be hard to breathe, your heart is racing. That's very, very difficult. So for a period of time, you're going to stop throwing. But the key here is that it's temporary. You're only going to stop throwing because you know that to keep doing that, that could cause further injury. That could make the pain worse. But you want to rehabilitate that injury. So you're going to get help. You're going to learn how to rehabilitate that injury. You're going to do exercises that are going to strengthen it. And eventually, you're going to be back out there throwing again, but maybe you're going to throw differently. And maybe you're going to learn a better way to throw, a healthier way to throw, so that in the future, you don't injure yourself again. The same is true when it comes to mental health. If you're experiencing heightened degrees of anxiety and heightened degrees of pain and depression when you engage in particular activities, maybe you need to stop those for a while. Maybe you need to avoid those triggers. But you only want to do that temporarily. While you rehabilitate yourself, while you get strong again, and while you learn how to engage and interact with those triggers in a healthy way, in a different way than you did in the past. Right? And this is why discussion around triggers is really complex. Because to some extent, yes, it can be healthy at certain times to avoid triggers. But on the aggregate, if you look at the large picture, it's not over the long term healthy to avoid triggers. The more you avoid triggers, the more you're going to have to avoid triggers, the more pain you're going to experience. Right? The more you avoid something, the more difficult it becomes. If an ordinary everyday activity like throwing or reading the newspaper or talking with your friends or seeing your boyfriend or girlfriend or going to work or going to school is causing you a lot of pain, then stop. Get help. If that's your body telling you something is wrong here, we have to stop and we have to figure out a new way to do this. But avoidance is not recovery. Temporarily, avoiding a trigger can help you. For example, if you're doing exposure and response prevention, you may find it useful to avoid a trigger temporarily. But what you're going to do then is start to reintroduce that trigger. You're going to start to expose yourself to it and learn how to accept that anxiety and not respond in an attempt to control or check on or cope with that anxiety. Eventually, the road to recovery is going to lead through actually purposefully exposing yourself to those triggers, but exposing yourself and then acting in a healthy way that aligns with your values. Just like if you have a physical injury, eventually you're going to have to expose yourself to that activity again, but instead of engaging with it in an unhealthy way that causes the injury in the first place, you're going to engage with it differently, in a way that's going to improve your health and increase your strength. So when it comes to avoiding anxiety triggers, remember that you may have to do it temporarily, but only do it temporarily. Because you want to learn how to accept anxiety. You want to learn how to see it as a normal, healthy part of everyday life. Because the more you can accept anxiety and the more you can accept uncertainty and you run towards it instead of running away from it, the things you're going to be able to do in life are going to grow and grow and grow.